I want to update you guys on the real estate commission lawsuits. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a class action suit against the National Association of Realtors, and the Department of Justice is intervening as well. The suit claims that realtors are conspiring to keep commissions high by making it standard practice for a seller of a home to pay the selling realtor and the buying realtor. The DOJ is trying to remedy the situation by prohibiting brokers from offering compensation in the MLS. Essentially, a buyer that's considering offering on a property will not know at first glance how much, if any, commission their buyer's agent will be paid by the seller. The DOJ is trying to make these commissions negotiable. They're arguing that because the commissions are predetermined by the seller and the seller's agent, they're not negotiated, and they should be. Now, there's a lot of talk about whether agents will be able to find out what, if any, commission a seller is willing to pay, and that's not clear yet. But essentially what you need to know is that when these changes take place on August 17th, buyers will need to have an agreement in place with their agent before showing a property, and those agreements will outline what commission amount your buyer's agent will earn and who will pay it. Of course, buyers are going to be looking for the seller to pay that commission at closing out of the proceeds of the sale, and so when you write an offer, the offer will have a predetermined commission amount written into it, and this will be negotiated in advance between you and your agent. Whereas now, the seller typically determines the buyer's agent commission, and this is what the DOJ is trying to change. Now, when the seller receives that offer, they can agree to pay it, they can refuse to pay it, or they can negotiate that buyer's agent commission down. The important thing you'll want to work out in the agreement with your agent, if you're a buyer, is if the seller refuses to pay the commission, will the buyer have to come out of pocket with the commission on top of their down payment and loan closing costs? You can imagine that tacking on a $15,000 commission is something the buyer will not be excited about, and in many cases will be unable to do financially. And so I imagine many agreements will state that if the seller refuses to pay and a buyer has to come out of pocket to pay their agent, that fee will be reduced in those cases. Now, we think that will be fairly rare to have a buyer pay their agent because buyers are cash poor when buying a home and sellers are about to have a big chunk of money. So there will still be pressure on the seller to pay the buyer's agent commission because buyers are in the habit of using an agent. In many cases, they simply will be unable to buy a house without an agent, especially in a competitive market like ours. Now, there are some savvy buyers that will be able to get a deal done by themselves, but most buyers want representation and they really struggle to know how to navigate the complexity of a real estate deal. We saw this on a recent listing that we had. We had a buyer that didn't have an agent and wanted to make an offer, but they really weren't even in the game. They didn't have their financing lined up, and the property sold before they were even able to write a contract.